What if the reason you can't leave that one toxic relationship isn't love? It's just your brain being chemically tricked into thinking chaos is passion. You know the situationship, the one where you say, I'm done on a Tuesday, and you're texting them again by Thursday. The one your friends are tired of hearing about. The one that feels so intense it must be real. Because nothing this exhausting could be meaningless, right? Margaret Mitchell wrote that relationship in 1936, and she made it a love story, which is honestly the most unhinged part. Meet Scarlett O'Hara, the original I don't need anyone girly who needed everyone. Scarlett O'Hara wants what she can't have. That's basically her whole personality. She's obsessed with Ashley, a soft, poetic man who is very clearly not into her, while completely ignoring Rhett Butler, who is very clearly obsessed with her. And Rhett Butler is the human equivalent of a Roman Empire you keep thinking about. Charming, unpredictable, says exactly the right thing, and then disappears. Tells Scarlett he loves her and also that he doesn't care, both at the same time. Somehow. Together, they are a five-alarm disaster with great chemistry and zero emotional regulation. And the book treats this like a grand romance, which is exactly the problem. There's a thing called intermittent reinforcement. It's what makes slot machines addictive. You don't win every time. You win sometimes, randomly, unpredictably. And that randomness makes your brain go absolutely feral trying to get the next hit. Rhett Butler is a slot machine. Sometimes he's the most devoted, attentive, loving person Scarlett has ever met. Then he's cold. Then he's gone. Then he comes back with a grand gesture. Then he leaves again. Scarlett never knows which Rhett she's getting, and that uncertainty keeps her hooked harder than consistency ever could. Something similar happens in your actual life. He or she sends you a text that simply reads, "Miss you," at 1 o'clock in the morning, after 3 solid weeks of radio silence. No calls, no texts, no explanations. And despite every rational bone in your body telling you this is a red flag, despite your friends warning you about this exact pattern, your entire nervous system short-circuits. Your heart rate spikes. Your hands shake as you stare at those 2 words glowing on your screen. All the resolve you'd built up over those 3 weeks of silence evaporates instantly. You're torn between the urge to respond immediately and the knowledge that you should probably wait, maybe even ignore it entirely. But the emotional whiplash is real, and suddenly you're right back where you started, hooked, confused, and wondering if this time will be different. Same mechanism, different century. Your brain literally cannot tell the difference. Here's why Ashley matters. He's not just some guy Scarlett likes. He's the safe fantasy she hides behind. Ashley is gentle, poetic, everything a Southern belle is supposed to want. But he's also weak, indecisive, and emotionally unavailable. Scarlett doesn't actually want him. She wants the idea of him. The version she invented where he's strong enough to choose her, stable enough to ground her, unavailable enough to never actually challenge her. As long as she's chasing Ashley, she never has to deal with Rhett, who actually sees her, flaws and all. Ashley is the perfect excuse to avoid real intimacy. And that's the function he serves in her life, a distraction dressed up as a dream. Does this sound familiar? Have you ever stayed in something because you could see who they could be if they just tried? If they just healed? If they just chose you properly this time? That's not love. That's a renovation project with feelings involved. And the house was condemned before you got there. Scarlett spends the entire Civil War, the fall of Atlanta, the death of her mother, and the destruction of her entire world still thinking about a man who told her no. Rhett is literally right there being devoted, and she's journaling about Ashley. The I Can Fix Them pipeline has been sending women, and honestly everyone, absolutely feral since before electricity existed. Here's the plot twist that hits different when you're older. For most of the story, Rhett is the one chasing. He knows Scarlett doesn't fully love him. He knows she's using him. He stays anyway because he thinks eventually she'll wake up. Sound familiar? Being the one who loves more. Thinking if you're just patient enough, present enough, they'll finally see it. And then, after years of this, Rhett stops. Not dramatically or with a big fight. He just gets tired, runs out of love, says the most famous line in American literature. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. And Scarlett, who spent the entire book not choosing him, suddenly can't breathe without him. That's the thing about on-again, off-again chaos. The power shifts. And when the person who was always there finally leaves, actually leaves, the person who was always pulling away suddenly discovers they had feelings the whole time. Right on cue. Right when it's too late. This is not a coincidence. This is avoidant attachment behavior, and it's been documented. I've been reading classics for 5 years now, and every time I open one, I get struck by how timeless these books are. The patterns they saw back then are still playing out today. If you want to see more of these connections, hit subscribe. Here's the thing about Gone with the Wind that nobody talks about. Scarlett doesn't end the book having learned anything. She watches Rhett walk out the door, and her immediate thought is, "I'll get him back. Tomorrow I'll fix it." She still thinks it's a strategy problem, not a her problem. And that's the real horror of the book. Not the war, not the poverty, not even the relationship. It's that some people can go through everything, lose everything, and still not understand why their relationships keep failing. Mitchell wasn't romanticizing Scarlett and Rhett. She was documenting a specific kind of emotional blindness, the kind that mistakes intensity for depth, drama for passion, suffering for meaning. If your relationship has a higher body count of breakups than your actual situationship roster, it's not a love story, it's a pattern. And patterns don't fix themselves. Scarlett had to lose everything to not learn that lesson. You don't have to. So, do you think we've been sold toxic relationships as romance so long that we actually can't tell the difference anymore? Or is there something real underneath the chaos that's worth holding on to? Drop your most unhinged, but it felt like passion story in the comments. And if you want more classics decoded like they're about your actual life, like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.